Check.
Yep.
Check.
Check,
All right.
check. Testing. Woo! Okay. What's up, Drew? Hey,
My
everybody.
man.
I am your host, Elad. This is Drew Hernandez, media reporter, commentator, undercover journalist. He does a little bit of it all.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking for the next half an hour or so. I wanted to go through a few topics that I know you know a lot about.
Let's do it.
I want to talk a little bit about Kenosha, a little bit about Kyle Rittenhouse, a little bit about politics. But before we get into that, I wanted to do a full disclosure. I am a big fan of Drew's. I am friends with Drew. There's actually a lot of people in the space who do a lot of different political stuff, and Drew works hard, and I think he does a better job than a lot of other people in the field. And I know this is a lot of high praise, but I genuinely believe this. But if you wanted to do a quick introduction, and then we could get into some topics.
Yeah, dude. I mean, the love is mutual. The love is mutual with Elad. I mean, I've been watching Elad for a while. I love what he does as well. I mean, on YouTube with the POV stuff, like on Twitter. But I mean, people can follow my work on Drew H Live. I do all that stuff, like on the ground stuff. Exposés on Antifa, BLM particularly, but kind of just following whatever's controversial, whatever's going against freedom is where I want to be. It's not necessarily about left or right, but it's about where the lie's at so we can show the truth, and that's kind of where I'm at and what I do.
Some of the more impressive work that I think you've done and I wanted to talk about was your reporting on Kenosha.
Mm-hmm.
You had some clips of what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse. We could get into that. But also, a lot of people cover Antifa, a lot of people get Antifa shots, but you do some undercover work where you get some of the craziest POV shots, body cam shots of what Antifa's doing. One that comes to memory is of them handing out the shields at one of these riots, and you caught the most perfect picture of that. I remember seeing the shields, thinking of where they came from. An hour later, I see you posting a clip about it. So we could talk about that in a minute, but can you tell me a little bit more about Kenosha, because we're coming off the heels of the trial. You're actually speaking on a panel with Rittenhouse in a few hours. So tell me a little bit more about that night in Kenosha and what happened. Maybe
yeah, I mean, I was actually in Chicago with Elijah and Kaylin a few days before Jacob Blake got shot. So it was like a Sunday evening. I was getting ready to leave the next morning in my hotel in downtown Chicago, and I saw that the shooting took place in Kenosha. So you know how it goes, right? You see it on Twitter. There's all kinds of people saying it's time to riot. You see images, videos. That's what I was kind of looking for. And honestly, what caused me to go from Chicago all the way to Kenosha was one of the rioters took a brick to a police officer's head.
I remember that clip.
Right?
I remember that clip. It was
brutal. And so
brutal.
I'm in Chicago, and I'm like, well, how far is Kenosha? It's like, I don't know, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. I'm not sure exactly, but I bought an Uber. I got an Uber. It was like $200 from Chicago all the way to Kenosha. This was during the lockdown, bro. You know what I'm saying? And at 11 p.m. at night, somehow got the Uber, went straight there. This was Sunday evening, hours after Jacob Blake got shot, and it was a riot.
And I believe there was a riot the night before, but then the night of the Kyle Rittenhouse shooting was actually relatively tame, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I'm talking about how Kenosha started. This is night one. This is 2 nights before Kyle even showed up with an AR-15, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So right when
Those
I showed
were the
up,
more wild nights, right?
the first 2 nights, arson, looting, extreme violence. The night Kyle was there, it was tamed down, but Antifa was still out there doing what they're doing, throwing rocks at cops, throwing explosive things at cops in their cars, lighting dumpsters on fire. That's what Joseph Rosenbaum was doing, pushing them into police squad cars that are occupied. So, I mean, it was kind of winding down, but it was still unacceptable. And let's just put it this way. The First Amendment didn't cover anything that was happening on the third night as well.
I wanted to ask you, I know you shot a few of the clips of the shootings or adjacents leading up to it.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through the clips that you shot in your head that you remember and tell me what you were thinking? Because we're reporters, we're on the ground. When we see danger, we try to run towards it, but these are extremely dangerous situations. You're hearing shots ringing out. You're not thinking drop to the floor. You're thinking follow the action. Could you walk me through some of that?
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, they're very tense situations because it's like, not only am I concerned about getting caught in the crossfire between, the political opponents, but these people hate me as well. They think I'm a neo-Nazi, this alt-right white supremacist, even though I'm Hispanic and I'm brown. But these people are actively looking for me on the ground, not because I'm a propagandist and I take videos out of context, because I show their crimes, and I think that needs to be done. So let's talk about Kenosha this night, particularly when Rittenhouse shot a convicted pedophile and 2 other people trying to take him down. I start this like I started in the trial, right? The rioters were being pushed back down a street. They were rioting. Antifa was fully out there, squat up. You know how it goes, full black bloc, right? So as they're going head-to-head with the police start pushing them back down a street, right? They're pushing them back down the street. They're throwing fireworks, throwing rocks at the cars, threatening the cops, taking concrete slabs, shattering them on the floor to create weapons. So as the police are pushing them back down the street, they make it in front of this car, this gas station, right? It's called the Ultimate Gas Station. If people remember the trial, that's where all the footage was taking place. So we end up at this gas station, and someone decides to light a dumpster on fire and use it as a weapon to push it into police squad cars that are occupied with human beings in the middle of the street. And the one that's pushing the dumpster is Joseph Rosenbaum, and this is all on film. People can go see it. As he's pushing it, I don't know who it was. I just call him like a good Samaritan. Someone had a fire extinguisher, put it out. I think that's the right thing to do, right? Someone's committing arson, possibly attempted murder. There's a gas station right there. So he puts it out. Joseph Rosenbaum, all of these rioters, they just lose it. Like they cannot fathom that someone put their fire out, their arson out. And all the people that, that showed up with rifles that night to, hold down the businesses and protect the businesses because of prior 2 nights of violent rioting, very violent rioting, arson, theft, looting, vandalism. They're sitting there at the gas station with their rifles. The rioters then go after them in the gas station, saying all kinds of crazy things.
Is this what led up to the part where Rosenbaum is chasing Rittenhouse?
I'm giving you the full context.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The full it matters because it shows how violent this guy was, right? So Rosenbaum is pushing a flaming dumpster at occupied squad cars with police in it.
Yes.
Someone puts it out. He then turns to the gas station, the people in there with the rifles, as they're the enemy now, and he starts trying to get physically confrontational, throwing his body at them to the point of saying, "Shoot me, N-word, shoot me." We've all seen the famous clips.
Why can't we say, he could say it, but here we are, like, self-censoring. We're scared to quote somebody.
At a stance against, like, police brutality events, right? I mean, when he said that, when Rosenbaum said that, there were, like, black people that were like,
can't help but say,
they're like, what?
We can't even directly quote a guy right now, though.
Yeah.
Like, even in court, I think they didn't even. But please go on.
He did in court, but then they backtracked on it. But so he's saying that he's getting physically confrontational. Rosenbaum, shoot me N-word. Shoot. He's obviously violent, very violent. Already commit arson.
Crazy how he got the N-word pass. I'm sorry for dwelling on it.
I know, but then he continues. He's dropping N-bombs. He's dropping racial slurs, getting physically confrontational, throwing his body at people. So after the gas station, he retreats back, okay, to the street where the fire dumpster took place. He then covers his face, Joseph Rosenbaum. He takes his shirt off, conceals his identity, and then he lights another trash can on fire. And there's about 2 minutes and, like, I want to say 5 to 22 seconds between Joseph Rosenbaum is lighting another dumpster on fire in the middle of the street, and he's rushing Kyle Rittenhouse from behind at the car source dealership. Okay, so this guy was not peaceful. This guy was extremely violent, and he was rioting. He was committing arson, and he charged Kyle from behind very aggressively.
As I understand, there was a shot fired before Rosenbaum chases Kyle, who then shoots. When you hear the first shot as a reporter, what's going through your head?
Just keep filming and try not to get shot. I mean...
And then the follow-up Rittenhouse shot.
Yeah, like, because I'm standing right behind a car, and I have no idea what's about to unfold. Because when you watch this stuff retrospect, you're like, that happened there, that happened there, that happened there, and yes, I remember it, but, like, in the moment, you're just kind of like, I have no idea how this could end up. Like, I'm in the middle of, like, a shooting right now.
You could end up being a part of the story. You could be
getting shot, you know? And you know, when that first pistol went off, it was, like, maybe 5 feet, like, right next to me behind a car. But Rosenbaum was already charging Kyle Rittenhouse from behind when a pistol goes off in the air behind him. So when he turns around, he sees someone charging him. What do you lunging for his AR-15? You know what I mean? Like,
and then this is actually what led to the other two shootings.
The other two shootings.
Let me kind of pivot and ask you: in the court of law, Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty on all charges. We're not in the court of law here. I wanted to ask, what do you make of his decision to go to a BLM riot with an AR-15, I believe it was?
Well, from my perspective, I think it was necessary because I personally view these people as like domestic terrorists.
17-year-old at the time.
Yeah,
Necessary?
I think it's necessary because I think it's a heroic act, and here's why. Because I was in Kenosha night one. Okay, these people were burning down buildings, committing mass looting, vandalism, to the point 2 consecutive nights. The police did nothing.
Would you call this guy a hero?
They did nothing. Let me finish,
Yeah.
okay? They did nothing, okay? Those 2 consecutive nights, they didn't. When I came back that third morning, the night that Rittenhouse shot people, we're walking around the town. You can ask Elijah, Julio Rojas. We're talking to people. These people are fearing for their lives, bro. And they're wondering. So many people ask me, where are the cops? Where are the police? Where are they? People thought they were going to die to where they were boarding up buildings, writing, children live here, because they knew that they could possibly get killed. So when there's a violent threat in the community and people say, well, just call 911, but if they don't show up because everyone's defunding the freaking police and they're scared to call the police, what are you supposed to do in a situation like that? I think what Kyle did was necessary because it wasn't just Kyle that showed up. I mean, what are you supposed to do in a position like that?
Yes. Would you go as far as to call him a hero?
I would say that act of putting himself on the line to protect another human being would be heroic, but I think the bigger picture of what Kyle has become now is a symbol of justice because of all of the slander that was literally put on him, all of the defamation of him being a white supremacist, an active shooter, all of this slander, all of these things that were against Kyle in this trial, pure lies, pure lies. For him to come out on top because the truth prevailed,
Yes.
I would say he's more of a symbol of justice.
I wanted to ask, and this will be the last question
Yeah.
on the Kenosha and Kyle Rittenhouse. This affects us because this could influence how people in the future act and behave at protests. Like, will more people become armed to protests, and like tensions could boil over, and it's more likely to be a deadly tension when people come armed. Do you want to see more people at these right-wing or, at riots come?
But here's the problem, man.
The problem is the police, again, right? Because if the police were able to handle the situation properly, Kyle Rittenhouse wouldn't have even felt compelled to go. But this is a big risk that he's taking personally to be out there. So, I mean...
It was never a protest.
Always a riot.
That's the thing. Like, Kenosha was a riot, bro, from the beginning.
Was that where
from
they had
beginning.
the CNN clip of the guy with mostly peaceful and
I believe
in the
it was either
background?
Kenosha or Minneapolis. It was one of the two, but that was just happening consecutively, bro, all of 2020. And this is part of the reason why I wanted to report on this stuff, because you could clearly see the propaganda trying to cover up the fact that these things are happening. And say, I mean, I think it's necessary to show these things so that people understand just exactly what's happening. But there was nothing peaceful about Kenosha. It was never a protest. That's what people need to understand. And we don't want violence.
Yeah.
But it just seems right now that there's a particular side of the aisle that is willing to use violence to get their political points across. And it's actually causing people to be like, well, if I defend myself, I don't want to get violent. But if someone wants to get violent with me, I have to protect I don't want to see that. Especially at like political events, even if it is a protest. To me, it's saddening, but I think we're so polarized politically where the far, far left right now is even calling people like Tim Pool alt-right, far right. That's insane, right?
I wanted to shift gears a little bit.
Let me make this last point. I think we're in a position right now politically where the far left is pushing people that may not even be considered on the right, just centrists. People that believe in the Constitution.
You're
and Second
not a
Amendment,
leftist.
right? But if you want to defend yourself, they're politicizing that as like a political identity where you're far right because you want to defend yourself with a gun. I think these far right extreme politics are really bringing the worst out of everybody. But you have to defend yourself.
Yes. And he was cleared on all charges.
Yep.
We're at a Turning Point conference. You're going to be speaking on a panel again later with Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
And you do some great reporting. I don't need to pull up the social media numbers. You guys could pull up the social media numbers if you want. They're up there.
Yeah.
A lot of people look up to you as a reporter. Again, a lot of young people here. What would you say to a younger person here saying, I'm interested in getting into some reporting. What can I do? Do you have any advice or suggestions for the youth
I would say
who want to get involved in politics?
I would say a few things. Number one, count the cost, because you go down this path,
consequences.
you have to understand there's going to be some major consequences, and not for doing anything wrong. But if you want to be a truth teller, that's my second point. Integrity matters. Truth matters. Always being willing to tell the truth in everything that you're seeing on the ground. People are going to respect you for that, but that's why you need to count the cost first, because with that, you're going to make a lot of enemies that literally thrive off of lies. So I think those are the top two things, because it's kind of more of a heart issue, because you can be very talented in anything, Elad.
Yes.
But if your heart is in the wrong place, you're going to go down the wrong direction. And people may say, oh, I'll never be that way. No, when you get into this business, bro, there are some serious temptations. People change, people sell out. They're willing to alter stories because they know they'll get more clicks. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
integrity matters. And I don't care what your political affiliations are. Just be willing to tell the truth, but you better count the cost, man, because you get into this business, few years down the line, you get into a position like I'm in, or look where James O'Keefe is. These people that are just like exposing all
He's
kinds
like a
of
superstar here.
Yes, but
literally like an idol here.
But
it's crazy.
it comes with a cost.
Yes.
You are a target, because if you're exposing lies, there's people out there that don't want those lies exposed, and it's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like some like hoorah thing we say at Turning Point USA or at CPAC or what. It's not like a talking point. Like, this is real, bro. Like, we're dealing with real things, and there are people out there that are gonna hate you because you're exposing them.
Yes.
You know what
You're
I'm
gonna
saying?
get the death
On
threats. You're gonna
both
get a lot of hate
sides,
messages, yes.
both sides of the political spectrum. So that's my top advice for someone considering getting involved with this kind of stuff.
Let me know if I'm getting too specific, and I know this, you report, and this is your safety here, but for the Antifa clips, you do a lot of undercover work and get some of the most insane clips. Could you tell us a little bit more about your process or how you go about these things?
Yeah.
If other people thought that it might, also benefit them there's some crazy thing going on in their city, it only helps to get more reporting out, more truth out.
Yeah.
What are some of your tactics? Because again, guys, Drew gets some of the best riot and protest coverage. A lot of people, Drew could be controversial in some points, in some things. Some people think he's crazy. They'll find a clip of him saying he hates communists or something. But when it comes down to the actual content and original reporting, which is extremely valuable in the space, some of the best work. So could you tell me more about your process? How you get these undercover? You manage to fit in. Tell me.
Yeah, I mean, everything I do with Antifa, Black Lives Matter, is undercover. Can't get into details and specifics, but I look like them, I move like them, speak like them, I become them. I just don't commit crimes. And that's the art of what I decided to kind of just get into. I mean, no one trained me. I just got thrown into this.
If they did train you, you'd go to some garbage liberal
Yeah, like I don't think there's a school, I don't know, but I mean, my process, it isn't, shout out to Alex, it is an information war. I mean, the knowledge you have is powerful. So if you know who these people really are, you know exactly what they're about, not just how they look. Because, I mean, you could show up to Portland at a direct action event wearing full black bloc, but if you're doing the wrong thing, they know you don't belong there.
And this is
that's the kind of intel I'm talking about. So I'm not going to share stuff right now, but you need to have your information on point, because if you don't know who these people are and how they move, how they look, how they operate, even their belief systems, you're not going to last too long. So I think knowledge is definitely power. And I mean, this isn't just Antifa, this isn't just Black Lives Matter, whoever you decide, whatever. I mean, like people that go down to the border or they want to go overseas and do wartime reporting, like, you have to know like your environment and who these people are. But if you're doing exposés,
it's DSA reporting from some of their conventions. But on that
Yeah.
infiltrator point, because I know we speak a lot about it, if he infiltrates, the BLM and Antifa, it's also interesting to consider. We're at a turning point event. Hey man, there's somebody here who's trying to do some infiltrating. Everybody's infiltrating something nowadays. Hey, Fang infiltrated the DNC operations there on the West Coast with Eric Swalwell. So that's I just think that's so funny. Hey, we have a spy here, somewhere here.
I wouldn't doubt it.
We have to have somebody who's infiltrating, trying to pull something. But yeah, man, thank you so much for the time. Was there any quick other topics you want to hit on, or
Whatever you want to talk about, man.
Let me press you on this one thing.
All
We
right.
have Donald Trump. Do you want Donald Trump to run in 2024?
Here's the thing. I supported Trump 2016, okay? Because I think the direction the country was going where we are now. I think Trump just put pause on that because he was a populist.
Sure.
But I think Trump ran on draining the swamp. But if people believe what they believe about the outcome of the election, the swamp drained Trump. It's just true. It's true, okay? And for whatever reasons that may be, I think he fell for a lot. I think
He was new too. He
I
didn't
think
have
everything.
A lot of experience.
I think maybe he underestimated the deep state. He underestimated how powerful these people are on both sides. But at the same time, everything that happened with the pandemic, COVID, Operation Warp Speed, I think he fell for a lot of that stuff.
You know, he just got his booster. He just said he got his booster.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
Can I get your comment thoughts on him saying he got his booster live?
I just think if someone wants to get the vax, that's fine, you know, but just don't tell me, like, whether I can or cannot get it.
I think he was encouraging people to get it. What do you make of that?
My thing is, like, look, Trump pushing the vaccine is a bad look right now because it's been used for full tyranny in the United States of America. Whatever his intention was, because it's still big pharma, it's still all of that, I don't know because I'm not the man. I just think that it was definitely used because now here under the Biden administration, there's just full medical tyranny falling upon Americans in New York and California. My criticism for Trump is stop pushing the vaccine, start getting aggressive against the mandates. Because if you want to get the jab, you make your own decision. I don't even feel comfortable saying, like, you shouldn't because of what's inside it. If you want it, then go get it. That's fine.
Is there a different Republican that you think would do a better job than Trump? A lot of people float DeSantis.
Yeah, but this question is a lot bigger. I mean, policy does matter. The America First agenda does matter. We live in a constitutional republic, okay? So anyone that gets behind that is someone that's going to have my attention. But the question with Trump right now, it really is, everything is based off of the movements right now with the populations. Who has the ability to gain an audience like he does and then pump in those values to get people behind it? I think that's part of the question now because he has the ability to do that.
So can I get it straight? Do you want him in 2024 or not? Do you want him or somebody else?
I personally do.
You want him?
I personally do. I'm just trying to give you some, like, honest. This is just, I got
I
to tell
feel
my
like
wife
there's a
this stuff.
division
I'm
here,
fully honest. Yeah.
Right? With I posted the video of Trump saying he was getting his third boost, that he got his booster on my Instagram, and a lot of the comments are very, very frustrated and upset.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting because there's the divide in the right wing who's pro-vax or about the vaccines and who aren't. Because some of these news media companies like Fox News, Newsmax, they still have their mandates going on in their companies.
Yeah, no, I mean, he got booed in Alabama, bro. Like, we covered that, with Real America's Voice, and it's because people are seeing, I think people really want that 2016 Trump back, where this dude just did not care. Like, he did not care, bro.
There was so much energy back then.
He just
with
said,
the wall, too, that we never got.
Yes. I mean, Trump's not perfect, but he definitely was, like, a resurgence in the United States of America. He definitely did, like, fan those flames of patriotism in the U.S. He was that guy that just came in and just said whatever he want. You remind me a lot of that. You just say what you need to say, right? But that's what's needed right now because there's people in this country that don't have a voice. And I think that's what people want back from Trump, especially with these jab mandates, what's happening at the border, all of these authoritarian things that are coming into the states. I think that's what people are wanting. And I don't think it's a good look when he stays silent on things like this because I think people start to say, well, are you just one of them now? Like you said you were one of us. What are you so worried about? If you just come out and say, yeah, the vaccine should not be mandated on anybody and get really aggressive on that. To me, I think he should do, it would benefit him to do, because that's who he's been from the beginning. He's just the rebel like that. Why he hasn't been getting that aggressive, I don't have an answer to that, Can
I pivot to one last Trump topic? We obviously can't be overstated enough. The election interference, the election being stolen. And we talk about a recount in some states a lot. I wanted to talk a little bit about how that narrative was used a lot in the Georgia Senate races. The Republicans ended up losing both of those seats. Trump talked a lot about, sent out some email before Larry Elder ran talking about how the elections were stolen. I don't want to get into the weeds of whether or not the election was stolen, but I wanted to talk about the strategy moving forward because if Republicans are constantly telling people that the elections are stolen and their vote might not count, like maybe Lynn Wood or Sidney Powell may have, do you think this will have consequences that will potentially suppress votes and suppress people from coming out? Because if they're told that their vote doesn't count, there's no reason to come out. So do you think this is the good election strategy for if he does run in 2024 to be like, hey, the election was stolen in 2020. Well, why would I even vote in 2024 if it was stolen in 2020? Wouldn't it just get stolen again? What do you think about that, and have you heard that?
I think there's a lot of eyes on it now. There's a lot of eyes on the election process. There's a lot of people pushing for legislative changes, especially in Arizona, especially like one day, one vote. There's so many things that they want to change, but I think the main thing here is people are watching now on both sides. They
Do you
really
think it's
are.
a good election strategy? Because he still talks about how the election is stolen.
I mean, it's a good point, because if you're telling people that your elections are rigged, it's going to discourage them
Especially
from
in
even voting,
Georgia,
right?
and that was what flipped the Senate too. So
Yes, but at the same time, I think we still have to push people to at least, use their constitutional rights to vote. At the same time, holding our politicians accountable to put some type of measures in place to make sure this never happens ever again, alongside of, journalists covering these things extensively, like actually watching the process and paying attention to the process, having people in voting booths, voting centers that on both sides that have the ability to take a look at all of this stuff. So I think
do you think Joe Biden's the legitimate president? Do you think the election was stolen?
I think there's a lot of sufficient points that have been made to point that there was a lot of things taking place in the 2020 election that were not legitimate. And my biggest thing with what happened in 2020 was their aggressive attempt to stop anybody from even looking into their own free and fair election.
The mass mail-in, like they brought out that system so quickly because of the pandemic.
Oh yes, that's
that was a big,
especially
the big
that
mail-in, the
with
mass
pandemic,
mail-in,
the mail-in
really
ballots, all that stuff. It should just be one day, one vote, in person. Keep it simple. How America, got started with its electoral process. It's easy. It's simple. I think. Listen, technology can be used for good and evil. One of the main things that happened in Arizona, Maricopa County, that they uncovered that actually was real was some of their voting machines, the cybersecurity software that was used in the 2020 election wasn't updated since 2019, okay? So that's a problem for me, because you and I both know, growing up in this millennial generation with the internet, malware, software, hackers, viruses, your PC updates its cybersecurity at least daily at the least.
We update our iPhones regularly.
Right? Never more than 24 hours on a PC. How are we using voter machines that are not being updated since 2019 in a 2020 election? Listen, whatever people may think about that, how that ended up, to me that's a concern. That's a huge concern. Because you have foreign people, you have people in the United States that could meddle. That's a huge people that I think concern that people need to take serious. And that's the kind of stuff I think needs to change.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
One other topic I wanted to touch on, and let me know if I'm saying too much. I just wanted to talk a little bit about how you have values, right? And you live out your values. Drew Hernandez is still a young man, but he's been married now.
3 years.
Let me know if I'm saying too much.
It's okay.
I've seen Drew at a lot of conferences. I've never seen him at a bar. I've never seen Drew at a bar, but I have seen a lot of other people at bars. And that's not anything about anybody else, but Drew believes what he says, and he lives by his values, and you could judge him for his values, but he lives by them, and I think that's commendable when we live in a world where people preach one thing and may do something else. And do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I try. I am a born-again Christian, so doesn't mean I'm perfect, doesn't mean I am Jesus. I strive to be more like Jesus every day, That doesn't mean I'm going to be this, perfect individual that has no flaws, but I know that truth and integrity is a hallmark of the Christian faith, and I try to apply that into everything I do, my marriage, my friendships, my business ventures, obviously reporting. Anything I do, I try and bring my values into that. It's one thing to preach to people and tell them how they should live, but it's one thing to be an example with your values to people on how a life you think should be lived should roll out, and that's what I strive to do. I try to do both. Obviously, you'll hear me get lit and start preaching Christ, at an event, but at the same time, I have to let my light so shine that the world may see it and glorify my Father in heaven. So I believe that's preaching the gospel is important, but if you're not living a life that's above reproach, you're kind of just defeating the message and the purpose. So, yeah.
Drew, bro,
Dude.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate
Love you,
it.
man.
Guys, Drew Hernandez on all social media.
Yes, sir.
We'll see you guys.
All right.
Thank you, bro.
Sweet, dude. Yeah, dude, I don't have